Welcome back after the disconnection that ensured that our previous segment basically finished without a single clear. That's all right. We'll continue from this point and we'll see if we can at least get through Springtime Puzzle, which has been occupying us for the past 3 hours or so at this point, most of which was spent just trying to execute a couple of the segments reliably, but now we actually are stuck on a particular issue here, which is getting through the final column, which turned out to be slightly more complicated than I had expected. And so let's see if we can actually continue past this point, and we'll just try to recover what we've been able to do so far. I don't exactly know how much we lost in terms of footage from the disconnection, but we have not progressed at all, really, from just trying to execute the same things again and again. Right now, the line of thinking that we have is that, well, we need some way to get over the right side column that doesn't run into either the wiggler or a shell that we have thrown at the wiggler. And the implication on the top right seems to be that you would have a shell flip over and then just walk off the top. But then we don't know how to sustain a shell in an upside down position for that long, because we know how to get it from here. I realize that we kind of started this mid-attempt, so I'm not quite illustrating this all the way from the beginning, but we know how to get it upside down from here. We know that you can retain it as upside down if you bounce on it. And for that matter, if you manage to... You know what? What if it just rolls back and forth? But then if it rolls back and forth, then you have a big problem with getting the bomb over later without the bomb getting killed. Because let's say you have the P-switch, and moreover, I don't have a good way to do that because you're bouncing on top of the flipped shell to get up there in the first place. That would imply a flipped shell followed by a... Well, if the P-switch is active already and blocking off this wall, then that's a bit of a problem in its own right. Because if the P-switch is blocking this wall, that means that you can't actually shell jump there anyway. At least not very cleanly. Well, you kind of can off this wall maybe, but if you shell jump before the P-switch, then the shell sails over and you lose it. And so I don't know that there's a clean way to send a shell back and forth. Anyway, let's illustrate this from the beginning since we just returned from disconnection, and this might wind up as a separate video when we get everything uploaded possibly. So this is what we have so far. We've got a way to repeatedly get the shell to come out like this. And then we grab the first, or rather the second coin, the one that's the rightmost coin with this, which may or may not be correct. And we try not to die to that. That's from placing the spring exactly where we did, which was not intentional at all. Okay, and then we get over here. And we grab the coin as before, and then try not to die to the shells that comes back. Whoops. We could even just, illustrate this cleanly once, just to recover the progress we have so far. That would be great, but This is a review of what we've discovered and the state that we wound up in, where we had to deal with the right side column with one shell and one spring available. So we have this. We have this. Then we can respawn the shell as much as we want, so long as we don't destroy it with a spin jump. So long as we just let it walk off, we can always get it back. At this point, what we've been doing is a flip. Where we drop it here. Crack it open like this. And then land on top of it. Now, this is where things get a little bit tricky. Because you need to make it to the left side slot fast, which we didn't do. And then you would need to bot that block. We did have a method worked out for it, courtesy of a contribution in chat from 06i in terms of executing the jump up to the question block on the top corner of the bumper, which was something that was a sticking point for well over an hour, possibly 2 on the stream. We are theoretically past that sticking point, but we need to get to that slot sooner. And then there's still one problem that we need to fix at the end. One little interaction that has not been sorted. Drop this here. Yeah, I wonder if there is a way we're supposed to flip the shell and then leave it flipped by having it bounce around, for example, in the bottom left slot. But if that's the case, I don't know how to really get up to the top. Because let's say we're flipping it. And we bounce it. But we don't have a way to move that shell past this point. Missed. Yeah, because you're supposed to crouch into that spring and then hop out by holding left in order to tap the bomb up top. That was a major sticking point for ages on the early attempts. Okay, now let's get up here, this, just try to get back to where we were before, just to illustrate what we've solved up to this point, which itself is something that we've been a little bit inconsistent about successfully demonstrating. Then, yeah, flip this. Oh, flip this. Here's the thing. Past this point, I don't know how to keep it flipped. And that seems to be the obstacle at the moment. Okay. Grab this thing. I suppose that we have enough time on the P-switch that we're able to rush over to this shell through the middle segment and bop it and keep it flipped. The problem with that is that the bomb will have walked too far at that point and we have no way to retrieve the bomb. Unless we catch the bomb so precisely that we're able to rush through the middle here quickly So, you know, the bomb is walking down through the top left. We would basically need to stay to the right of the P blocks after tapping the bomb. That's a little tricky because we get pushed up by the bumper very aggressively. If we stay to the right of the one-way panel, then the bomb comes out to the left first. So previously on all the attempts, Mario has gotten ahead of the bomb. If the bomb comes out first, then we drop on top of it, and we run it over, then we drop on this shell while it's still flipped. There's still a problem with that. No, there isn't, because if it's flipped, then you don't need to do the shell jump to make your way back up to the spring. Okay, we actually have an idea here, but you need to be fast to get it. The execution has to be perfect. I think it might actually be too tight. But it seems like while the P-switch timing is still active, you're able to beat it by going through the middle and then going for the flip again. And if you can get that flip quickly enough, you have to be carrying the bomb and you have to throw the bomb at that point. But if you can get the flip quickly enough, then you don't have to do the shell jump. And that seems a little bit more intuitive. But it does mean that after the first flip here, we have to do everything else pretty much instantly. Oh, forgot to flip it. And take it. So for example, if we leave it here, and maybe even move it over so we can just go straight up to the P-switch. And then do this quickly. Miss. But the idea is that you take the bomb and then you bop this as it's shaking. So you can actually beat that timing. The problem is that you have to wait for the bomb. And if you have to wait for the bomb, then that might set you back by long enough that... Yeah, because the thing is, if you go through the center while the bomb is walking down by itself, you can't really get back to the bomb quickly enough to pick it up, because it just walks off. So... the only thing... Yeah, you just can't do it, because unless you get the bomb to walk slowly by dropping on the spring itself over here, the shell wake-up time just isn't going to happen quickly enough, perhaps. Because the bomb is still doing a slow walk down at a time. P-switch is still active. Timing doesn't particularly make sense for it. But we'll find out. Okay, we'll send this up. We'll flip it. You need to maintain the flip for as long as possible after this bounce. No, we got ahead of here. Yeah. So you see, the thing is, bomb comes over and it just falls. You can technically bounce on this before the flip, but I don't know if you have enough time to wait for the bomb up top and grab it with you and still make it over in time. I feel like that's going to take too long before the shell comes up. But if we can get a flipped shell at that point and still bomb the right side, that is a viable solution. Whether we're able to do it is an open question. Okay, let's spawn another one. Oh, too far over. Oh, whoops, no, that was a mistake. But I wonder if there's another way that we can get up there such that we can keep a flipped shell rolling. If there's a way to keep a flipped shell rolling so we can take our time getting towards it, then that would be much more useful. But I don't currently see a good way to do it. Unless, well, let's think about this. The possibilities I can think of in general are much too tricky. They're naturally going to lead to execution issues. For example, you can do it like this. I mean, a spring has to come up with you. There's really no other way. That opens a tantalizing possibility, which is... we'll take this, we'll flip it. What if you flip it into something like a shell jump? That seems needlessly fussy. And it defeats the whole purpose of the flip, which is to give you the extra tile of movement. Like if you up throw the spring and then you shell jump using this. That seems extremely fuzzy. I don't think that's a good idea. Maybe we should blow at least one attempt on it just to figure out whether anything about the timing makes sense. Whoop. No, because we need to keep this down. And then, oh, missed it anyway. No, none of that works. But if you can't keep a flipped shell, then I don't know how you can get through the right side column. Okay, drop it here. Let's let it wake up so we can flip it again. The thing is, how do we keep it flipped at this point? We're jumping off of it. We need the wake up in order to get the extra bounce. We need the spring to go up with us in order to get to the top corner and hit the question block. Assuming that Mario is the one who's supposed to activate the question block, which the bumper might be there to discourage, but we're not sure. What if we have a flipped shell that is... Hang on. I'm going to try something different. Something a little different. What if we send a flipped shell over to the question block? Try to roll it ahead of... and try to tap it from underneath the bumper. So this is going to be slightly different when it comes to execution. It'll be actually vastly different from what we had been doing previously. But what if we're able to flip a shell, send the flipped shell through to the question block, and then tap it from underneath to roll it? This is a total rethink of how we've been doing it so far, and that's okay because I think we need one. Because the idea, then, is that we tap this, send it through, we flip it first, and that is going to be necessary, because we need to retain it as flipped for as long as possible. Now the problem is, as before, that we don't have a way to follow the bomb on the top right, and also I don't have a way to bounce up towards the shell. Yeah, I don't actually have a way to tap it. So short of an interaction where I'm able to beat the P-switch, which is not happening, that doesn't work. I was thinking that it might be possible to tap that shell from underneath. That's another thing that the bumper might have been there to prevent, actually. That's not a possibility. But anyway, that route gets us back to the original problem that we addressed a little while ago, which is that we have no way to escort the bomb over. Because you essentially have two ways to escort the bomb over. You let it walk itself by jumping on top of a spring. Here's something to consider. Let's say we drop the spring. Does it respawn? It does not. Didn't think so. I'm trying to see if there's a way that you can actually despawn the spring and get it to return to this original location. Like... and you don't. But... because if you can actually despawn it somehow and get it to return to that location... well, here's a possibility. What if we destroy it using a turn block? Then can we get a respawn off of it? Because if we can, then that actually leads to some interesting possibilities. Because, yeah, actually we have to try this. I have to sort out the logic here. What if you eliminate a spring? Well, I mean, we can actually test it even without the shell here. Actually, yeah, let's test this. Oh, actually, yeah, the spring doesn't actually even activate the P-switch at all. That is something that we should have noticed from the beginning. But let's say you have a turn block just flip on top of it. And just have it sit. It gets pushed. So that doesn't work. But what if you destroyed it by putting it on top of the coin on the right side? I'm trying to find a way where we can destroy a spring and have it respawn. I don't know if there is a way to do that. If we can make it disappear somehow to have it in a restorable state the same way that the shell is restorable. Given that when the spring is destroyed at all, like when it falls off, it does not appear to come back, but... Okay, you know what? We have to try this. That instead of grabbing this coin, we specifically do not grab it. Whoop, hang on. We have to try something here. No, we specifically do not grab it. I just want to try a little something first. Which is, we come here, we'll get the flip. This is not the solution path that we're testing right now, we're testing something else. Let's just bump on this one more time just to keep it down. Oh, come on. No, we don't want to just take it right away. So up to this point, I've never actually used that first coin for any kind of utility. There might be something that we're missing about it. And I do want to just run a little bit of a test quickly so we're sure about the interaction. We're going to flip this. We'll jump it just to make sure we still have it available. I'm going to just send this up for a moment. Okay, now can we despawn? No, the spring does not come back. I didn't think it would. I did not think it was. Oh, it does. It does. If you're out... Okay. So here's something important. This spot here is not far enough away to respawn the spring. One spot over is far enough to respawn the spring. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. That you don't throw the spring necessarily up to the question block, but then where does the spring go to kill it? You have to kill it using this P-switch. Then how do you get that and the shell up here? So presume that you're going to take the shell and you're going to use this. You walk the bomb over. The idea is that you want a bomb to walk over safely and land on the respawn point for the spring. How do you get the spring to respawn? Well, you need to be off screen, but you need to go over to the one coin that is under the P column over here. That gets you far enough to have it to be sufficient number of tiles off screen to come back. So, for instance, we ditch this thing. Hang on, let's shell jump it quickly. Go all the way over here. Notice it respawns. which means that if you activate everything and destroy the spring using some location where you can destroy it, and the likeliest candidate position would probably be something like this turn block here. I'm not sure, because the thing is, it needs to be on top of a coin, essentially. That may actually be fine. Supposing that we send a shell over here, eliminate this stuff. No, we can't eliminate it. It needs to stay as a coin. It needs to be a coin. Coin turns into a block on the P-switch activation. It blows up. No, because the thing is, this P-switch needs to be active at the time that the spring respawns in that position. If the P-switch is active at the time that the spring respawns in that position, then a bomb is able to walk down towards it and cross. However, that does assume we take this coin first. That unblocks it. And that still doesn't solve the problem of how I'm going to get through to the other coins on the left side later. So maybe this is not right. But it leads to a tantalizing possibility, which is am I able to respawn this in the ending sequence when I have a shell and a spring available? Is there a way I can destroy the spring and bring it back in such a way that I would have an additional object to work with to take out everything on top? I don't think so, because the thing is, the wiggle column remains on the screen, which means that anything you throw up there remains on the screen and does not get destroyed. So I need to find somewhere that will actually destroy a spring and allow me to bring this back, because this is not accidental. The fact that you can go one further tile and respawn a spring in exactly the position that you need to walk a bomb over through the center, that's not coincidental. If a P-switch is active while a spring respawns in this location, while Mario is kind of locked up here, that's viable. The problem is that I need the spring to be in a place where that can happen. And if I'm using a... Okay, here's the thing though, that if you activate the bomb using a shell on the left side, the shell is down at that point, but you actually have time. You don't need to activate the P-switch yet at that moment. Which means that you can take your time to reposition the spring somewhere where you can ensure its destruction. That's assuming it's up there with you though, and it's not up there with you at the time because it might be here. However, let's say this is on a half tile here. Like halfway over on this P block. We're going to test that. We're going to see if it just gets destroyed. We're going to try that. This is a completely different approach than what we had before, but that's okay. We needed something fresh. We have it half tile over on this slot. We made it so far with the other solution though. That's the thing. It's spent so long on it. It does get destroyed. But the thing is, this right side needs to be clear. But you're able to take a shell up with you and destroy the spring, and respawn a spring on the left. That means that if you do things with the correct timing, by eliminating this coin first, and creating that space, then you are able to throw a shell into this position, and the shell eventually does walk off. We know that. The spring gives you a bomb that is an untouched bomb that is going to go all the way over here. However, that still has a complication, which is that if we're doing that sequence, we still don't have a way to do a shell flip unless we avoid blowing up this block here that we were previously using for the shell flip anyway. So here's the new sequence. We grab a shell. Maybe that disconnection earlier helped in terms of just resetting our mind for this a little bit. After pursuing a much trickier solution for most of the stream. Here's how we're going to do it. Now, we still haven't figured out how the shell flip at the end is going to go necessarily. We spawn a bomb first. Then, oh, no, we don't. We have to get the coin on the right side first. Coin on the right side has to go down first. Because otherwise we don't have the respawn point. But yeah, now that I see the respawn spacing for the spring, things have come together very quickly, I think. This feels much cleaner than the other thing we were doing. We should not have stuck with it for so long, perhaps, without examining other possibilities, but you know, that's what happens when something feels like it's working. We got all the way to the final column with the previous method, which is maybe a much bigger red herring than intended. And yeah, if this is the solution you're supposed to go for, it's clear to me now that if the bumper was something that was actually patched in, it was there to discourage Mario from jumping through, and it just didn't work to prevent that, and didn't work to prevent me from chasing the other solution for ages and ages. Now, however, we have this possibility. Place this halfway. You don't even need to do that yet, necessarily, but spawn the shell. And then, at this point, you can just walk things over gently. However, when you tap the P-switch, you need to make sure not to blow up this block here, because you need it for the flip afterwards. Oh, too late. We needed to scroll back faster so the bomb also walks over. Then you have access to two things. You have access to the bomb and this and a spring. You have access to everything. And you have access to this block for the flip. And I think at this point, we see the answer. I think at this point, we actually have it all. Now, are we speaking prematurely? Have we overlooked something very critical? Maybe. But this feels much, much better to execute than the thing we were going for previously. Which, to be fair, did get us over to the final column. Twice, at least. But this feels much, much more sensible than the other thing we were trying. And the thing is, a lot of the clues were staring at us the whole time, and it was saying the whole time, this looks like a bomb walk through the middle. But figuring out how to respawn the spring and figuring out that I actually just needed that one additional column to get its off-screen range to work. That was the entire trick, because I ruled that out too quickly when we tried to find a respawn position for the spring and didn't get it. I didn't count the columns properly and realized that we actually just needed one more column, which we have, with that open space we revealed with the rightmost coin. Using that column, we respawned the spring into position pretty much instantly, the same way that we've been respawning shells, so the clues kind of flow into each other. And now I think I have a much more positive opinion of what it was like to progress through this puzzle, because now we're not fumbling around with everything. You know what, before we do this, let's place this correctly in the half tile position. Oh, let's jump this again. Get the up throw. And then when we hit the P-switch, we avoid this block. We zip to the right and zip immediately to the left. There we go. Problem. the coin on the left side, we still don't have a way to get that. We would need to get that on activating the next P-switch. Okay, this is a problem. We don't have a way to get the coin in the middle by this method. Because let's say the shell is still alive here. We flip the shell. By flipping the shell, we can up throw through here and blow that up. P-switch is available at that point. The problem is Mario's not on the left. And we would need a shell to be moving rather than walking. In order to get that, so... that is a bit of a problem with this solution. We no longer have a path to the middle coin. Because currently, by our solution, the shell and so the Buzzy and the bomb are walking together. When P-switch expires, we don't have a way for this second P-switch trigger to happen in a position when I'm over here on the left and I think the way you would have to do it is when the next P-switch goes, you would need another Buzzy shell to walk. But then it's not in a state that would collect the coin. That's the issue. That you need some kind of thrown object or something to go through it. That the Buzzy needs to be in a Mario activated state in order to collect the coin. So that's a bit of a wrinkle in this method. Everything else now seems so elegant though, but it's just that this method is also missing a step. Maybe. Well, let's think about it. Let's say the spring is in a position where... yeah, I'm trying to see if there's a way to fire a shell here, but the thing is the shell has been used for the up throw towards the question block. But is there a way to have a launching interaction with it at that point? Probably not without running into that bomb. Because Buzzy and Bum are walking through the middle. Neither of them are in an activated state. If the Buzzy is in a rolling state at the point, that's a different story, if you're actually launching the shell. We need to map this out. So yeah, we actually still have one complication here. But even with the complication and even with that coin uncollected, we should map out the rest just in case we figure out one more respawn or something that will get rid of that little wrinkle. Because you would need to deflect the shell in a thrown position to bounce towards that coin, unless Mario has a way to follow to the left after P-switch activation the way that we have been doing earlier. So this also has a bit of a problem as a route. However, let's do the rest of it apart from that one coin clear condition to see if potentially maybe we don't even need that coin. Potentially maybe there's some additional interaction that we haven't seen yet that could account for that shortfall, but I don't know, we probably need that coin, but it doesn't make sense to have that block there if we don't pick it up. Okay, still have to get used to the new method that we're trying. After hours of execution errors with the other way. Hang on, let's... flip it on this side. Thing is, can you actually launch it in any way at this point? Not really, you can't really touch it. So they're in a position where both of them are going to walk. As soon as we get up here and do this bit. Let's move this over slightly so it will actually be destroyed. So they're both walking down at this point. We want to disable them both. We want to keep the Buzzy Shell available. We want the bomb to blow up the right side, but then how do we get the coin in the middle? We actually don't have a solution for that. We don't want to grab this on the left just yet. Okay. So we're able to get the flip. Let's just do it like this. So if we can get the P-switch activation, the next P-switch activation while Mario is standing to the left, that solves issues. I don't know if we actually can, given the thing that we're going for here, which is trying to see if the shell flip will actually work for a top interaction. And the thing is, when you do that, we'll need to fetch this coin as well.